Down to crumble. Prophecy of my Lord is true. On that day we will let them mingle with one another, and the horn will be blown, and we will summon them all together. This verse is 3 or 4. This verse talk about the end of the world. The last prophecy in the Quran before the end of the world of Gog and Magog. Living baby. The last prophecy is Gog and Magog, and it's going to happen at 1700 lunar days, 2271. The year 2271, because if you go to Gog and Magog, it's in verse 94. If you count the verses to the end of the Surah, it comes to 17 centuries from the revelation of the Quran. The only other mention of Gog and Magog is in Surah 21, also 17 verses from the end.
So how do you know that the end of the world is coming 9 years after these 17?
Because the end of the world is 1709. 1710 actually.
Where does that extra 10 years come from? Where does it say?
When you see page 305, at the top, KHYAINAS. Okay, if you add the value of all these letters in the Quran, it comes to 1709. And they determine the length of time from the revelation of Quran to the end of the world. You have to read the appendix on the end of the world. I think it's appendix 25. Huh? 25. So 1709 means the length of from Quran to the end of the world, which 1709 will be completed, so the end will come in 1710, which is a month of 19. You have to give this kid up for adoption. Yes, I take him.
That's 300 lunar years from now.
309. Yes, from now, yes.
Because both of these Gog and Magog are mentioned 17 verses before the end in the chapters, could it also mean that 17 years before the end of the world it will come?
No, 17th century is because this, you put all the pieces together, this is what you come up with. So 99 says, on that day we will let them mingle with one another. This is Gog and Magog will be two bad countries or nations or communities. It will not like the spread of true Islam around the world, so they will attack. Because God will not let them prevail. So then the world will blow up. In other words, you can think of God personally coming to intervene in this. And once God comes to this world, the whole thing will blow up. 100 will present hell on that day to the disbelievers. This is consistent with the rest of the Quran, where God says hell will be created on the day of judgment. There is no hell now. This is why the unrighteous die, because they wait until hell is created. They see it. God shows it to them in a nightmare, as we see in Surah 4. Heaven already exists, so for the righteous they don't wait. They go straight to heaven. 101. They are the ones whose eyes were too veiled to see my message, nor could they hear. There is something very important now that's developing. I think Edip sees it, I see it, and that the word used for message here is dhikr. And we're coming to the realization that dhikr means the mathematical code of the Quran specifically.
The Arabic word.
Dhikr. Because if you look at Surah 38, this is our reason. This is how it all started to develop, and it makes perfect sense. Look at page 453. Habib, you wanna get 2 copies of the Quran there? One to your dad, one to yourself, from up here. You notice that verse 1 says, Salat and the Quran that contains the message. Arabic it starts with Quran is a zikr. In other words, the Quran that contains something in it, and it's called zikr. What is the something that's contained in the Quran? It's the mathematical miracle. And it's in Surah 38. And it begins with a letter Sad. Yeah. Get another one. There's more of them. Oh, you have two? Yeah. Okay, good. You're hiding the other one under your arms. Gibran, your mom was missing you. I have to teach her to expect only great things. Get used to that. You're not missing you?
No, they
Of course
wouldn't
not.
do that.
You're having fun. Where's Hanan?
She's over there.
Oh, there he is. How can you sit far from him after
She doesn't
so
want
many
to be
days?
with me. He
Oh, I
wants
see.
back family.
Okay.
I had 4 kids. He's adopted. Adopted.
Yeah, mashallah. As long as you can see him sitting there, having fun.
Ustad, even 15:9, Surah 15 verse
Yes,
9 is
and then احنا نزلنا الذكر وإن له لحافظون. But Edip doesn't like that. Edip wants to use that. He doesn't want to touch the idea that the Quran may not be completely preserved. So, but anyway, a dhikr. Also, when God speaks about the number 19, He says this is dhikra, which is very close. Dhikra lil-basar. So we're coming. So now, if you look at this verse here, on that day, God says they are the ones whose eyes were too veiled to see my mathematical code.
verse in chapter 15, 15:9.
Yes.
We accept this given a miracle of mathematical structure of Quran. The mathematical structure of Quran, until now, it covers all verses, even letters, words, and the things that we didn't cover yet. And for this reason, when Quran is a zikr, Quran has a zikr, this mathematical structure, that means even if we accept that this mathematical structure has been preserved with God, by God, this covers the whole Quran.
Yes, and guarantees its preservation.
It doesn't, that something that, for example, these 2 verses is not, doesn't belong to mathematical structure.
So we want to close the hadith. Because they're too noisy. Okay, hadith. So this الذين كانت أعينهم في غطاء عن ذكري seems like the mathematical code fits perfectly here. Because those people just cannot see the miracle, no matter how gigantic it is.
Rashad, could you go over this against the Surah and the Quran that contains the zikr, which means
The mathematical code.
the mathematical.
This is verse 8, Rashad, that أنزل عليه الذكر من بيننا.
Yes, that's
This is
true.
in zikr.
Yes.
38 Siemens? Yes,
Yes.
this is you. I thought you were talking about this one, isn't
Yeah,
it?
this whole verse is talking about how they can't, why is he, why
This
is,
is miracle.
Yes.
yes.
So why did the message come down to him instead of us?
In fact, this actually happened. This is actually what they said.
Yes.
So we're getting to this understanding now. So 101 says that the ones whose eyes were too veiled to see my message or my mathematical code or my miracle, to think of it in any of these terms, nor could they hear. This will be reflected in the new translation, inshallah. The new edition. 102. Did those who disbelieved think that they could get away with setting up my servants as gods besides me? My servants meaning Jesus, Muhammad, Mary, Hussein, Ali. Yes.
When you say message, so that's also the content. The content is also important.
Yes.
Right, not just the code.
Right.
So you're not going to disregard that. It would be all encompassing. Right?
I just got it past by the word dhikr without pointing out that it is not the Quran.
But it's the message as well as the code, as well as it's many.
With a strong leaning to the code, because look at 26, for example, Surah 26. Since you opened that subject, I'll give you more evidence that it may actually be the mathematical code specifically. Surah 26 at the beginning. Verse 5. Whenever a zikr comes to them from the most gracious, they turn away from it. Let's look at Surah 21, the beginning of 21. Verse 2 says, whenever a zikr comes to them from the Lord which is new, they listen to it heedlessly. The same word is used. 21:2. ما يأتيهم من ذكر من ربهم محدث, new ذكر, new evidence, new proof.
So message and the word dhikr can mean in Arabic message or
Reminder,
coded message.
Specifically a reminder.
Reminder.
Which also applies to
Rashad,
Yes.
excuse me. I think if they, how do you say, specify with a mathematical code, these verses have been revealed 40 centuries ago, and if people that time they couldn't see this miracle,
Right.
and God blamed those people that who do not understand or see this zikr. And that's
You mean we're supposed to know nothing more than the people of the first generation?
No, but I know, but they are the ones whose eyes were too veiled to see my, for example, mathematics. If you say this, we have to accuse all.
No, I say this to us.
Excuse me?
I say this to us, the people who saw the mathematical code now. How do you explain the Arabs' failure to see the mathematical code?
Which miracle did you see? What kind of miracle did you not see? But I don't know.
102. Did those who disbelieve think that they could get away with setting up my servants of God besides me? We have prepared for the disbelievers hell as an eternal abode. Shall I tell you who the worst losers are? They are the ones whose works in this life are totally astray, but they think that they are doing good. Those are the worst losers. So you better make sure that you're worshiping God alone, you're devoted to God alone. This is the criteria. We were talking about this the other day, and we said you have to assume that you're no good and try to prove that. And if you fail, then you're okay. Okay, let's take two people. One says La ilaha illallah, and the other says La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Which one is more likely to fall in idol worship?
The one who says Muhammad Rasulullah.
Yeah. Which one is more likely to be accused of putting something with God? The one who says La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah may be perfectly alright. Maybe perfectly alright. But that's a maybe. But the one who says La ilaha illallah, there is no chance of accusing him or her of being putting idols next to God. You say God alone, God and Muhammad, God and Jesus, God and Moses, God and Mary. Only the person who says God alone is safe. And they think they're okay, they're doing all right. Those are the worst losers, because on the day of judgment, not the day of judgment, on the day they die, it's a terrible surprise. The angels come to beat him up, say, what do you mean? I was good. So it's going to be a terrible surprise. This is why God calls them the worst losers.
Can you be the righteous person but not believing God according to the Quran?
Yes, and your work will be in vain.
You are Muslim, but you don't believe in God.
Right.
Is it possible?
Yes, you'll be wasted. You'll be the nicest person in the world. You'll be charitable, you're very nice, you never hurt a fly, and you go to hell. Because you worked it in vain.
Because you want this life, you want only this life. No?
You're going to it's in vain. It's totally in vain. But this life, there are certain guarantees in this life anyway, for the believer and the disbeliever. Remember Abraham said, provide only for those who believe in God on the last day. And God said, no, I provide for everybody, believer and disbeliever.
Isn't it so that
because it's a test. You have to provide all the, so on the day of judgment they'll not say, oh, I didn't believe because I didn't have any money. Yes.
Isn't it so that actually when you refuse to believe, it's like you are completely rejecting where you come from, in a sense. Our soul, we come from the world of
No, when you refuse to believe, you're making a choice. You have given God's message
yeah.
the day you were born, and you're given Satan's message. And you make a choice. And you chose Satan's message, therefore you belong with him.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very simple, really. 105. Such are the ones who disbelieved in the revelations of the Lord and in meeting him. Therefore their works are in vain. We're just talking about that. On the day of resurrection they have no weight. You see, Beirut, they can be very nice and very righteous, but if they don't believe in God, and the soul is emanated from God, then the soul will not grow, because they have no weight. They went to Weight Watchers, the hereafter. Of the hereafter, of the Weight Watchers of the hereafter. You're supposed to go to the Weight Watchers this world.
Not Weight Watchers, Soul Watchers.
Yes, Soul Watchers. You're supposed to go to Weight Watchers. We are Weight Watchers of the soul, and we make it as fast as can be. We give you so many calories, like we're doing now. We have the fastest soul in the universe, I think. Alhamdulillah. Therefore the works will be in vain on the day of resurrection, they'll have no weight. So there'll be a weighing day on the day of judgment. See who is the heaviest.
You're fat
This
and
is repeated
beautiful
throughout
over
the Quran. Huh?
there. You're fat and beautiful.
Yes, fat and beautiful. 106. Their just requital is hell in return for their disbelief and for mocking my revelations and my messages. As for those who believe and lead a righteous life, they have deserved the blissful paradise as their abode. Forever they abide therein. They will never want any other substitute. I mean, the choice is so glaring, so fantastic. And what is needed is so simple. What is needed is what is good for us. Do the 5 prayers, the fasting of Ramadan. All these are designed for our physical and spiritual improvement. You get up before sunrise, you do the morning prayer, and you finish, by the time it's 8 o'clock, you finish more work than the others do by 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, especially on Sunday. 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, you see your neighbor coming out to get the paper. Very sleepy, stumbling around. But you've been out for 6 hours already. I think we discussed all the physical benefits of getting up and doing the 5 prayers. The Quran, everything we need. 109 say, if the ocean were ink for the words of my Lord, the ocean would run out before the words of my Lord run out, even if we double the ink supply. These 2 verses have to do with Quran versus Quran and Hadith. God gave us the Quran and He gave us everything we need here, everything that's relevant to our eternal life. So when God tells us that the wudu, the ablution is 4 steps, He didn't run out of words. If He wants us to do 9 steps as the regular Muslims do, He would have told us the 9 steps.
Why did He give marks like quotation marks, commas, was it on the original?
No.
Only
the verses, the end of the verses were marked. That's it.
We didn't understand the question.
These dots and dashes and things and commas in the Quran, they did not exist. Maybe he was wondering if they existed in the past. Ahsan has a very good argument about this. the people who challenge God and say, if the Quran is complete and perfect, like God claims, where is the prayer, the details of the prayer? So she always asks them, you mean if the details of the prayer were in the Quran, perfectly stated here, will you follow them? She said, of course we'll follow them. She said, okay, let's go to the first step of the prayer, the wudu. Here it is, God tells us it's 4 steps. How many do you do? Do you follow this? Takes long. Yeah? It's a wonderful argument. He's so sharp, guys. MashaAllah. Yeah? Right, but how do you come up with this idea? MashaAllah. Wonderful.
One thing I found out about the Shia, good for Shia.
Yes.
Because all of them, they believe that if you say Amin in Salat, destroy your Salat. If you say Amin,
Oh, wonderful. Yes.
Yeah, but when we ask them, for example, if the Amin is bad or good, they say, no, Amin is very good. That means dua or something like that. And when we have to do Rabbana Atana, when they say, what is wrong with Rabbana? You are too far because Rabbana Atana, all this is a good thing. And I asked them, okay, what Amin? Amin in my language is very good, it's bad? They said no. They said, why? Amin is to destroy the Salat, but adding the Muhammad and the Qul Huwallah and the Rabbana is not. They don't have any answer.
Right.
They believe that if you
They have no argument.
I had Sarah attended the Fatiha the other day, and the man asked why the Fatiha in Arabic.
Who was he? Someone was asking, why do the Fatiha in Arabic, it's so difficult. So difficult for
Why
the...
not Surah? Why don't you read Surah after the Fatiha? I tell them you have to look at the Islam as a universal religion. Everybody has to learn the Fatiha and has to do it exactly the same way. If you put other surahs and people, let me give you a sample. Very simple, it's very easy to learn. And I told Sarah, I said, Sarah, can you please write to the Fatiha? She recited the whole. She doesn't speak Arabic, she's a child, and then she recites the Fatiha. That's what you need.
Perfect, yes.
That's what you need for the Salat. Among other things.
If you read anything after Al-Fatiha, Alhamd, what will you read? And who's going to pick out what? There's so many...
Everybody will be saying something different. Among other things, nothing. Other things.
The Jafars don't know yet, but there are some new revelations, this is part of it, that pin down what to read in every rak'ah of the 17 rak'ahs of the day. And it is only Surah 1, nothing else. So inshallah, after you rest, take a nap and so on, and come back tomorrow, we'll go through it. But God told us exactly what to read in every single unit of the prayer. The last verse, 110, says, do not follow hadith. Say, I am no more than a human being like you, being inspired that your God is one God. Those who hope to meet the Lord shall work righteousnness and never worship any other God besides his Lord. Says, in other words, this verse saying, I'm a human being like you, do not idolize me. This is the Prophet Muhammad is being idolized against his will, and Jesus and Mary are the same. They're being idolized against their will. So this is our one-page afternoon Quranic study. Congratulations. But the floor is open for general discussion.
What's the difference between Lord and God? As far as I understand.
Lord is referred to God with the capital L and this Rabb. But if it's with a small L, it is like this. God with a small G. Or Rabb also. Sometimes it refers that they made their priests as Rabb.
Sometimes the 106 I plus the I started with V.
What difference in I and
We means the angels participated. It means God and the angels. I means God alone. I thought Laila went to San Francisco yesterday.
No.
Are you going today?
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. That's good. What was the question again? Oh, Rabb, Lord. And the question on I and we. Like what God says, we revealed this scripture and we will preserve it because Gabriel participated in the process of revelation. And we will preserve it because our angels making sure that nobody will tamper with it. And this is generally the rule. The one part that confused a lot of people is we told the angels fall prostrate before the... I hear this question more often than anything else. We told the angels fall prostrate before Adam. So how can it include the angels? They don't understand that the number of angels is... even the angels don't know how many angels there are. There's so many of them. The number is so vast. What happened was God told the leaders of the angels, I want all the angels to fall prostrate when Adam stands up. When I blow into him from my spirit and he stands up alive from mud to a living person, I want all the angels to prostrate. So the angels went and told the rest of the angels that when this happens, God wants us all to fall prostrate. So it's still we.
God called archangels and the
Right.
archangels
So
called
the
the
angels.
angels.
Yes.
I have been told, or the I talked to and they say that the name of God, not God, Allah is the name, and that in translation should be Allah, because that's his name,
Yes.
and it should not be translated as God.
So why do you translate? Why do you translate this in the name of? You either speak in English or speak in Arabic.
Yes, but I mean the name, for instance, Allah is Allah. This is what I say.
Yes, Allah is not a name.
It's not a name.
No.
So they are allowed to say that Allah is a name.
Right. The Christians in the Arab world say Allah.
What is all good names of for God?
Yeah.
Whatever name you call for him, it's okay.
It's not a name.
Name description.
Yeah. Allah means literally the one God.
The one. Yes, the one.
Allah means the one God. I hear this a lot also, but it's very stupid. And you look at something that says, in the name of Allah, the Rahman, the Rahim. Give this to any American and have him figure it out.
Yesterday I was saying Allah is the one that names us.
Yes? Yes.
What is?
The value of the apostle. When you add up the natural value of the whole lot, you consider this 800 God would be done. Differently, although you pronounce
You pronounce the same. One is heavier than the other one.
Everyone who knows is a part of the infinity of Allah, that basically we believe Allah is infinite, therefore even the writing at the end has to do with
No. True. The true statement.
One subject is very confused, especially from many subjects, these believers, they make me more confused.
God created the earth, then it also
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم سبحان ربي العظيم سبحان ربي العظيم سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى الله أكبر الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم سبحان ربي العظيم سبحان ربي العظيم سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى الله أكبر الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم سبحان ربي العظيم سبحان ربي العظيم سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى الله أكبر الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم سبحان ربي العظيم سبحان ربي العظيم سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى الله أكبر الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى سبحان ربي الأعلى الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. السلام عليكم. السلام عليكم.
حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. We seek refuge in God from Satan, the rejected. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Tonight we start at Surah 81, and our teacher is Edip. He's going to start right away. Go ahead.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. When the sun is rolled, the stars are crashed into each other. The mountains are wiped out. The reproduction is halted. The beasts are summoned. The oceans are set aflame. The souls are restored to their bodies. The girl who was buried alive is asked, for what crime was she killed? The records are made known. The heaven is removed. Hell is ignited. Paradise is presented. Every soul will know everything it brought. Here there is a general description of end of the world and resurrection, but I think there is no a sequence between these events. Only description both two events. God messenger of the covenant, I solemnly
explain the stars crashing into each other. The sun is rolled.
Yes.
We're not going to let you get away with it. You have to explain. We can read it.
Yes, I know, but it is so obvious. What can I say?
The mountains are wiped out.
Yes, because the harmony,
yes,
the system will be collapsed, and there will be no gravitation, there will be no any system, and everything will collapse, will catch each other. And this is a description of end of the world. Very obvious.
So there will be an implosion.
What?
There will be an implosion. That sounds like it. The stars will crash into each other.
During
I
the
don't want to give you,
explosion
I'm not giving you a
also.
rough time.
No, I don't worry about it.
Okay, in Surah 39 it says when I fold the
Yes,
heavens like folding of a book.
yes.
This is it. So it's an implosion. They actually are expecting an implosion.
There are two theories about end of this universe, scientific theories. According to them, one option, the universe, because universe is expanding, if the expand speed is more than a critical point, the universe cannot come together how do you say, forever it will expand. And but another theory is the maximum speed is below the critical point, and then after a while, many years later, they say thousands years or billions years later, they will come together. For example, if you threw a stone from the earth more than 11 kilometers per second, if its speed 11 kilometers, more than 11 kilometers per second, this stone will not come back to the earth. But if the speed of the stone less than 11 kilometers per second, it will come back many kilometers later. It will stop and then will fall on the earth. This is gravity law. And now from Quran we understand, we know that the second theory will occur. This theory is called as what is the opposite of open? Implode. Yes, universe theory.
But what is the Quran's theory?
Quran theory is implosion. They will come together like the paper of the book. And yes, this is a description of implosion.
Why will it happen?
Creation were explosion. What?
Why will the implosion happen?
Because God will say, be, and it will be.
No. It's not just that. Anybody wants to pitch in? Yeah? Emily?
God will come.
Yes, there you go. You have to speak fast, yeah? Okay, now we're talking. So this implosion will happen because
when
will
God
physically come to this universe.
God's physical existence, when God comes, this universe cannot stand for God's physical existence, and then they will implode. Do you have any question about this part? If you ask, we can explain. But
well, it's like pulling teeth, it's got the information there, but you have to pull it out.
Yes.
So do ask him questions.
I have a question. What about verses 8 and 9?
The girl who was buried alive is asked for what crime was she killed. From Quran we learn that Arabs, they were humiliating women, and they were not glad with the girls when they see girls as a baby. They didn't want girls, and they were killing them. And this was a very great crime, offense. And also now we can see the extension of this understanding. In many places in the world, girls are also the second class of human beings.
And I think killing of girls was because of economy. The boys, when they become adults, they could gain money, or they could work, but girls that time they couldn't do it, and this was one of the reasons. What? Some the beasts are وإذا الوحوش حشرت.
He's waiting.
Yes. What's your question, brother? Why?
Are the beasts called pork? They are called pork. What does that refer?
There are two ways to interpret, to understand this. One way, the beast, when a big event, explosion or a great shock happens, from fear they come together. They become together. This may be expression of this event, or in hereafter, God also will resurrect all animals.
Yeah, the second interpretation is correct, because in Surah 6, verse 38, you can see that remember, ثم إلى ربهم يحشرون.
Yes.
So it's the same word being used, that all the animals will be resurrected and will be gathered on the day of resurrection.
I also have a comment.
So if you had a pet or anything, you will meet them all on the day of judgment.
I have a comment which I'm not sure is accurate because of my familiarity with the loss of memory. The first two verses sound very similar also to what is described as a black hole phenomenon, where a star changes its size very quickly and then shrinks, and the gravitational mass becomes so great that it actually draws other stars in.
Yeah, the black hole phenomenon is a minute representation of this. This is a universal black hole. It's similar to it. But I want to go back to the 8 and 9 that Beth was asking about. I don't like to depress you, but this is actually still happening in Saudi Arabia today. I call it a cultural disaster. And this is why when they walk into this mosque, they're shocked to see a woman's hair, for example. And they run away. I mean, they cover up the woman, and they regard them in such a disastrous way that they used to kill the baby girls in the past. And I had a Saudi friend 10 years ago who went back to Saudi Arabia, and he came back. He was almost crying. He said, "You can find baby girls in garbage bins now." He was from Medina. So he said, "This is in the Prophet's city." It's very depressing. But that's what I mean. How will you change a cultural behavior like that if the Quran didn't do it? I mean, what is going to do it? But this will make you understand why they are shocked when they walk in here, and they make up stories like in Masjid Tusan, the men and the women pray side by side, which is not true. And they make up things like women lead the prayer at Masjid Tusan. It's just they have this severe complex that even today this thing's happening. They don't have accurate records of pregnancies or even births in Saudi Arabia. So this is why it is significant that it is mentioned in this surah and mentioned in other places in the Quran. The girl who was buried alive was asked, for what crime was she killed? And of course the hint is for those who commit this horrendous crime. It's a demonstration of stupidity. So believers don't have that. I come across believers once in a while who prefer to have a son over a daughter or son. And I really suck it to them when they come up with that, because there's no preference whatsoever. As far as God is concerned. It may even be the other way around. In fact, there are sayings, I think here in the States maybe, maybe in other countries also, that say what the girl brings a son, but the son is taken away by his wife, some to that effect.
Your son marries your son, and your daughter marries your son.
Right, something like that. I've heard it in different ways, said in different ways. So,
Also, on the day of judgment, the sins get high. They may
Right.
not that it's done with the kids.
Yeah. This should be brought out. It's such a horrendous crime that the Quran gives it a lot of attention. It also reflects the kind of mentality that exists there, even now. Any comments, please? Exactly, yes, exactly. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, even the women who survived are actually buried alive. The way they demand that they're covered up this way. Ismail just came from Iran, and how does the streets look like? The ladies, they have to be covered up. How is the society in general accepted? Is there any kind of rebellion among some people?
There are some rebellion, but they say the government is true.
Is it a widespread rebellion, or is it just limited to the people? Are the people accepting it? Like, let's take the ladies who used to walk in the street in European clothes. Now they have to cover up in this black stuff. So they are. They're forced, because otherwise they'll be killed. So did you hear over there? Ismail says that there is rebellion against this forced dress in Iran, but they can do nothing about it. If they speak up, they'll be killed. So it is terrible oppression. This is a form of burial. They're being buried alive. What's her name? 60 Minutes. What's her name? Diane Sawyer. Diane Sawyer went to Iran, and she had to, before the plane landed in Iran, she had to cover up her head, and she made a big deal out of this. And it's a double standard. Go ahead.
In the process of writing a paper about so-called Muslims, I was shocked to find out that even today, in certain so-called Muslim countries, husbands just out of sheer suspicion or throw his daughter out of the house. They had records where people would actually, for example, murder their wives.
Oh yeah, or daughters.
Discontent. And he's trying to rationalize this based on all the violence and what kind of intent they might take their life. And there are frequent incidences of this type of thing happening, where the husband would say, I don't want you to know if there's something wrong with you. He may murder his wife, he may throw her out, he may completely reject his daughter, whatever the case.
Well, I have on my desk a piece of news from the Arizona newspaper, where in Iran they ordered, in Pakistan, a judge ordered the execution of 6 people because of sex crimes. This is the headline. And when you read the article, you find out that this lady didn't like her husband, so she left him. Of course, according to the Quran, marriage is a contract between 2 people, and once out, the contract is invalid anymore. But they don't give this right to the woman, according to the so-called Islamic Sharia. So I don't know how many months or years later she married somebody else. Now her former husband complained, and they ruled that she and her new husband have committed adultery. So the judge ordered them stoned to death, and 4 of their friends. also stoned to death because they knew about it. I have this on my desk. If you don't believe it, you can read it later. This is the kind of mentality that is where the women are oppressed. And we read in Surah 28 that God feels for the oppressed, and He makes it up to them. According to Hadith and Sunnah, the majority of inhabitants of hell are women. But I'm convinced that the opposite is true, because of the oppression that they undergo. When I served in Saudi Arabia for the United Nations, I came across a daily program where people send messages, and most of these messages were from women. I'm telling you, I cried. I actually cried listening to that program. Because a typical story will be a woman whose husband disappeared for 6 months or a year. She doesn't know where he is. She's grounded in the apartment or the house or the place that's assigned for her. And her in-laws bring whatever food or whatever that keeps her alive. She never leaves the place. It's just like a prison. And this is a typical story. And she's asking for help. Obviously, she snuck out a letter to that radio program. So it is a tragic situation, and I guess abandoning the Quran is one of the reasons for this happening. Any other comments or questions? I just want you to know what is happening over there, because so we can thank God for the freedom we have here and the ability to practice the Quran. Edip, back to Edip. Verse 15.
Yes, verse 15. God's messenger of the covenant. I solemnly swear by the galaxies, precisely running in their orbits, by the night as it falls, and the morning as it breathes. This is the utterance of an honorable messenger, authorized by the possessor of the throne, fully supported. He shall be obeyed and trusted. Your friend Rashad is not crazy. He saw him at the high horizon. He is not holding back any news. It is not the talk of a rejected devil. Now then, where will you go? This is a message to all the people, for those who wish to go straight. Whatever you will is in accordance with the will of God, Lord of the universe. Look at the footnotes. If you add the number of the chapters plus Rashad, geometrical value of Rashad and Khalifa, you'll find it divisible by 19, and this refers to the message, because in verse 27 God says, in huwa illa dhikrun lil alamin. This is a message to all the people. And it describes Rashad's experience how many years ago? I think it was 20 years ago. In 1971, when he was in Medina, in Mecca, he had an experience, a visual experience, and this is a description of this event.
I think if you refer to this Appendix 2, page 643.
In Appendix 2, there is a reference you have now. Now, in chapter 3, verse 81, you will see the prophecy about God's messenger of the covenant, and if you add them to the geometrical value of Rashad and Khalifa, you'll find 1311, which is multiple of 19. And this surah has number of 81, and you find in verse 19 God describes the messenger, and also if you add them up, is also divisible by 19.
This is of course very embarrassing to me, but I can't afford to hold back any of this. It's mainly for the future generation. Our generation may not be able to stand this kind of news. As for our people, God snuck it on us gradually, very slowly, so we were able to stand it. But it really is an awesome responsibility. I want to read with you page 643, why 81. I want to spare Edip the shyness. Verse 81 and Surah 81, number 16 here says, God's message of the covenant is prophesied in verse 81 of Surah 3. The addition of the grammatical value of Rashad, which is 505, plus the grammatical value of Khalifa, which is 725, plus the verse number 81, produces a total of 1311, 19 times 69. Number 17, if we look at Surah 81, which is what we're studying tonight, we read about a messenger of God who is powerfully supported and authorized by the Almighty, as we see in verse 19. Thus, verse 81 of Surah 3 and Surah 81, verse 19, are strongly connected with the name Rashad Khalifa. As you know, when the first hint came out in the first translation, authorized English version, a lot of people were up in arms, why authorized? Who authorized this? But the verse in Arabic here, verse 20, is very clear, authorized by the possessor of the throne, fully supported. And now we have these mathematical proofs, Quranic and mathematical. Number 18 on page 643 say if we add the surah numbers plus the number of verses from the beginning of the Quran to verse 381, where the message of the covenant is prophesied, the total comes to 380, 19 times 20. And this is shown in table 6. You understand this number 18? You take the surah numbers and the number of verses from the beginning of the Quran to the place where the message of the covenant is prophesied, and this gives us 380, a multiple of 19. And as you know, 19 is our generation's sign. Number 19 says the geometrical value of verse 381 is 13148, which is a multiple of 19. This value is obtained by adding the geometrical values of every letter in the verse. Number 20, if you look at that portion of verse 381, which refers specifically to the message of the covenant, I have it here in Arabic. It says, a messenger will come to you confirming what you have. We find that the grammatical value of this key phrase is 836, 19 times 44. So this is the connection with Surah 81. This is why I couldn't afford or to avoid writing in verse 22, put the name Rashad in parentheses there, verse 22. And some of you who are familiar with the initial announcement will excuse me for doing this, because I just can't afford to hold back. Those of you who are not familiar with that momentous night, I'd be glad to go over it with you again, and if you find that this is not acceptable, I don't blame you. It is very difficult to accept, but I will be very happy to discuss it with you if you have any reservations. And like I said, this is for the future generations. It'll be easier for them. I have to share with you a story that will please the believers. We were staying at Farima and Amir Kulani in San Francisco, and they have two children. Shaliz, she's 8 years old, and Paris, he's 6 or 7. After 2 days of staying there, the neighbor's kids came to the house and asked, "Where is God's messenger?" Apparently, that the Farima and Amir's children were going to the neighbor saying, "Guess who's sleeping in our house?" And it reflected how it will be a lot easier for the new generation, because they don't have the holdbacks or the hang-ups that we have. They will grow up and they will look at the whole story objectively. They will look at the proofs objectively without anything holding them back. So it pleases us to see the people, the new generation. So this here, if you excuse me for putting it in, it is for the new generations. And I hope most of you will understand anyway. Okay, back to Edip.
Do you have any questions about this part?
If you have any questions, don't be shy, because you have to bring out all any doubts and kill them. Yes. It's interesting that I find some of these things happening without me paying attention, like he's not holding back any news. He's not holding back any news, because I'm not holding back anything. I want everything to be clear in the open. And then I read the verse and they say, yeah, this is what is happening. And the point that Lisa raised of obey and trust, he shall be obeyed and trust, it is not the person. It's obey and trust because we're receiving information from God. And this is why God ties the commandment of obeying God and obeying the messenger together throughout the Quran. Because I'm just as excited as you when we receive new information that threatened everything that we were doing. We were doing lots of things wrong, and God's mercy sees to it that we changed our ways to the correct way. So this is where obeying and trusting comes. Your friend is not crazy. This ties in with the other statement. The Quran says, I've lived with you many years. In other words, this is a quotation in the Quran. Remember it? I forget what it is exactly. But what it says is that here is a person who's been with you for many years, and you know he's not crazy. Because a person who is not a messenger of God, who claims to be a messenger of God, will have to be crazy. If he is not a messenger, he will be a person who has no belief that he will meet God someday, and will be asked by God about everything he's doing. Or he's a person who doesn't have any mental capacity whatsoever. And the statement that I've lived with you many years is because I got to know you, we know each other, and obviously I'm not crazy or mentally retarded or any. So this statement, your friend is not crazy, ties in with that. I stayed with you for a number of years. It is God's design to appoint messengers after the age of 40. This has been consistent, except for the Prophet Jesus, for special reasons. But every messenger was appointed after the age of 40. So he lived among his people for 40 years. They know him as a normal person who's a merchant or a shepherd or going about his business. They know he's a normal person. All of a sudden he says, I'm God's messenger. And invariably they accuse him of being crazy. So he said, I lived with you so many years and you didn't know that I was crazy, so why do you call me crazy now? Why don't you examine what I'm saying? Yes? 10:10? 10:16, yes. 10:16, yes. So this is the idea. Because if a person lives with you for so many years, you know him closely, and you know very well he's not crazy, then he's either he's really a God's messenger, or he's a very, very bad person who is trying to trick God. It's one of the extremes, nothing in between. Yes. Him at the high horizon. He saw him at the high horizon. The footnote 81-23 says Rashad Khalifa was summoned to the high horizon as detailed in Appendix 2. And this has to do with the fact that I was summoned, and I was passive at the time, but all the prophets fulfilled their covenant, which is recognizing, acknowledging, supporting, and believing in the message of the covenant. Yes, it was on the high horizon. Exactly where I don't know, but it was out of this universe. It was in the place where the souls are. So chances are it's in the seventh or the first universe. If you consider ours the seventh universe, that fulfillment of the covenant occurred in the first universe. And in the last conference, as you know, I shared it with you in detail, and I'm glad to share it with anybody in detail at any time. But most of you know, those of you who don't know it, I'll be glad to share it with you again. But briefly, I was summoned to the first universe. I sat in a place, and all the prophets, one by one, acknowledged me as God's messenger of the covenant. I was told they were all the prophets. I was not given the identity of any of them except Ibrahim, because of his resemblance to my own family. I was taken aback by this man who looks like us, my uncles, my father, and I was told there was no speaking at all, but mentally I was told this is Abraham. Other than that, I was told that these are all the prophets. That included Noah, Jesus, Moses, David, Solomon, all of them. So this is what 23 refers to. If you read the appendix 2, it will give you these details.
All I meant was the thing about the time horizon. What I know about evolution, and I understand that's what you refer to. I just was asking you what about that.
Yeah. Where are the prophets now? For example. What happens? When I take it to the babysitter? Take it to the babysitter. Go ahead. All right. In other words, those who are known to be to deserve guidance will accept this information. The people who are willed by God to be guided. Does this make sense, Martha? Should be clear. So this is a message to all the people, for those who wish to go straight. You know, when you pray every day, you say, Ihdina Salat al-Mustaqim. Guide us in the straight path, or the right path. So those who wish to go straight will accept this heavy information. This is very heavy information. Okay, when you look at any person, there's an invisible stamp on their forehead that says heaven or hell. Okay, the person who stamped hell on the forehead, there is nothing you can do to guide them. And the people who are stamped heaven, God knows, only God knows who is going to heaven and who is going to hell. So, for the person who is stamped hell or misguided, there is no way you can make them understand. The person who is stamped in heaven would see this and would accept it right away. They will see that there is nothing wrong with it. It is in accordance with the Quran. There is sufficient proof. They may hold their judgment for a while until they examine the evidence and so on.
The you here is referring to those who wish to go straight?
No, it refers to you and me and anybody. Whatever you people will is in accordance with the will of God, Lord of the universe. No, it is not new idea. We've always talked about it, that when we are born, God knows already the people who did not side with Satan during that great feud. They didn't really side with Satan. Remember the khutbah, my last khutbah, about the two arrows? Okay, there's some people who went along with the crowd, but in their heart, they did not side with Satan. So these people deserve to be guided. They deserve to be redeemed. And they are put in circumstances that bring them in touch with this message, for example. When they are born, they are assigned to a certain house, certain parents, to grow up under certain circumstances, and then the result will be that they are guided, because they deserve to be guided.
This is a blessing also to us and our believers, because not only speaking, but when we talk about miracles to a lot of people, it's a real problem that they're saying. And when we mention, I know I've had experience when I mentioned the Dr. Rashad Khalifa's message of the covenant, that totally nullifies everything that's said. And a lot of people who quote Quran, who read say, where does this explanation come from? You say that God is still the messenger. Well, they immediately just accuse you of worshiping the messenger. All of a sudden, you need to hang on someone. You can't think on your own. So this is both a protection and a mercy for the people who are also guided. Because one of the strategies of the atheist and ruling leaders is to tell you that you are incapable of standing up on your own. You need someone else. The authorization and the sign removes a doubt from the hearts of the true believers. You know that the motivation and incentive is from God to receive God's message. It's just striking.
It's an obstacle. It's an obstacle for the misguided. Say it again. Yeah, table 5 must be.
No, before it.
Yeah, it's from the previous
15.
page.
Must be 15.
This copy is just dealing with the number 81 because this is Surah 81. The locust playing havoc with the group here.
Who will be the lucky person?
Yes. Now Douglas said that this is lucky for us because actually we have no idea how lucky our generation is, because this puts us in a place where we can belong with the elite of the elite. The elite of the elite, or in the Quran, as-sabiqun, those who are especially close to God are the people of the first generation. Whenever a messenger comes, Abraham or Ishmael or Jesus or Moses, he's gonna fly around and hit everybody. The elite of the elite are the people who exist at the same time when the message is new and the people are rejecting it, and you are being persecuted for accepting that message, which is worshiping God alone, accepting the word of God alone. It's a very heavy responsibility, and the people who accept it are very, 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 I can this forever, fortunate, because they are the elite of the elite for eternity. And you're not born at this time by coincidence. There is a reason for it. Obviously you deserve it. But to say that we are lucky or fortunate is the understatement of the century. It is really a very, very exciting part of history, and I'm just talking as a person. So God happens to want us to know certain information to correct our path, and God's system, as we learn from the Quran, is that He selects one of us to distribute the information through one of us, and doesn't make this one of us any better or worse or special. There is no, and we have many lessons in the Quran indicating this. Moses, one of the great messengers, God sent a teacher in human form. He could have been a human. Probably he was an angel. But God didn't tell us if he was a human or an angel. The fact is that Moses existed, and there was another servant of God who taught him a few things. So it's just a system whereby God disseminates information to all of us. We are a very fortunate generation indeed. Alhamdulillah. Abdullah. I think we lived these very exciting times, and we've seen how The information comes as we needed it, at the right time. Before printing the Quran, we were working on the appendix about the 2 false verses, and Mahmoud Habib and Abdullah Harik and Ismail Barakat and Feroz Karmali and Gatut were coming with information. There was just pouring information coming. The evidence, very powerful and amazing. We just couldn't catch our breath. And now that the book is in the press, they are very quiet, aren't they? Do you hear anything from Mahmoud or Abdullah? No. But the information came at the right time. It was just amazing. I will start the computer and I will be working on this subject, and they will walk in with the information as I'm just about to put my fingers on the keyboard to type. This is what Abdullah is talking about. Information comes as we need it, and this is why we're so positive about God's signs. We don't have doubts.